Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
And it appears that more and more people are doing that. More people are submitting to the war machine, but I will not, and hopefully you will not either. And you might be asking yourself, what makes me say that more and more people are submitting to the war machine? Primarily because they are. People are still paying their taxes, they're still signing up for the military, and they're still supporting the police state. And at least some people, a very sizable percentage of people, and it's 50% more than it was 4 years ago, they want to increase the war machine to go into libraries and remove books and otherwise prevent you from reading books that they don't like. The story here comes from Reason.com. And according to a survey from Harris Poll that was conducted in March of this year, 50% more people now support banning books than supported banning books in 2011. The survey was conducted in March, and they found that 28% of the 2,244 adults that were surveyed answered yes to the following question. Do you think that there are any books which should be banned completely? That is up 18% from, or rather up from 18% in 2011. That's a total increase of 50%. While it's still a minority, the author of this article says, I felt that from 18 to 28% in just 4 years was rather surprising growth. That actually a quote from Harris Poll research manager Larry Shannon Meisel. And the person writing this article says, to be fair, the poll wording is somewhat confusing, jumping from talking about the content of school libraries to books more generally in a way that may have influenced some of the responses. And I was talking about this on Free Talk Live on Friday with Ian Freeman and Danica, and Ian said, what do you mean about the previous questions influencing? And I said, okay, let's give an example here where I'm asking you some questions. Are you hungry? And because I know that you ate before the show, I know that you're going to say, no, I'm not. And that's going to influence the way you answer my next question. Do you like tacos? And I said, because your mind is still thinking of the previous question, and you're thinking that this is a follow-up, even though it's a completely different question. So if you are sort of, and I don't want to say in the mindset of thinking that the questions are follow-ups, because that's generally how surveys are conducted and interviews are conducted, is that the next question is in some way related to the previous question. It's not something that's totally unrelated. If you had someone ask you, hey, we've got a 5-question survey, would you be willing to answer? And chances are, yeah, sure, okay. And then they ask you the first question about dogs. Like, do you want a dog? And you say no. And then the second question is, have you ever eaten a taco? Like, the two things are totally unrelated, and it's going to confuse you. And it might alter the way you answer the next question. Let's go back to the, are you hungry? Well, I just ate. Do you like tacos? I told you I just ate. Well, I'm not asking if you want a taco. I'm asking, do you like them? But the previous question alters the way you're going to answer further questions. On the school library front, a full 71% of those questioned said that they expect librarians to keep age-inappropriate books out of the hands of students. In addition, 60% think that books containing explicit language should be kept from school bookshelves entirely, although they don't necessarily define what explicit language is. 48% also said that violent books, or rather books about violence, should be kept from bookshelves entirely. Now, there are several other shocking things in this survey, but let's just think for a second about what a violent book is. The Hunger Games is a very popular book series. There's a lot of violence in the Hunger Games. So basically, you have 48% of American adults saying that they think that the Hunger Games should not be allowed for students to read, or at least if they are to read it, they should not be allowed to pick up that book from the school library. Those people are also saying that the Three Little Pigs should not be allowed in schools. Now, they're not going to actually say, no, the Three Little Pigs should not be allowed in schools. They're saying that books with violence should not be allowed in schools. Well, the Three Little Pigs is a violent book. You've got the big bad wolf huffing and puffing and blowing a house down and attempting to murder pigs. What's the other? Little Red Riding Hood. You've got a wolf that eats the grandmother and then attempts to eat Little Red Riding Hood. That's a book about violence. Bambi is a book about violence. You have a hunter that shoots Bambi's mother. That is a violent book. 48% of American adults do not want your child to be able to read Bambi in the school library. What else do people not want your children to read? Well, according to the survey, 44% did not want books containing witchcraft or sorcery, which not only means that you cannot have the Harry Potter books, but it also means that a lot of William Shakespeare cannot be read in school libraries. Well, most of the William Shakespeare would be kicked out because of violence. Because Romeo and Juliet killed themselves. There were like 5 other people that died in that book. Caesar winds up getting killed. That's a book about violence. There's King Lear. People die. Macbeth. People die. Plus, Macbeth has explicit language. Out damn spot. Out damn spot. Explicit language. You cannot read Shakespeare in books if these people get their way. What else? Anything involving sexual activity, drug or alcohol use, and vampires. 43%, 37%, and 36%. And this is not talking about just elementary school. This is schools in general, meaning they don't want high school kids reading Go Ask Alice. Read it. If you've never read it, read the book. Read it. You should, but not if you're in school, apparently. There's more. Stay tuned.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, ExpressCoin, and Amazon, at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
So before I get back into what people want banned and why some of these people do not want your children learning things, I want to make sure that I tell you about a way that you can spend your Bitcoin. That is, if you support free market money and you use or promote Bitcoin as an alternative in this fiat-centric world, you need Spend a Bit in your arsenal. It's a search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. Spend a Bit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. I know they have products from Overstock.com. They've got products from Free Press Publications and thousands of other merchants. So keep your money in the free economy. Spend a Bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin-accepting merchant, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.fppradio.com. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. So these people that were surveyed back in March, let me go back over some of these numbers here. 71% said that they expect librarians to keep age-inappropriate books out of the hands of students. 60% think that books containing explicit language should be kept entirely from school bookshelves. 48% said violent books should be kept entirely from school library bookshelves. That includes pretty much everything written by William Shakespeare, all of the classics, pretty much anything that is going to be required reading for a high school student meets one of these criteria. Yet, nope, can't pick it up at the library if these jackholes get their way. Got 44% that want to keep books that contain witchcraft or sorcery out of the libraries. Anything involving sexual activity, 43% want removed. Drugs or alcohol use, 37%. And this does not say specifically books about drug or alcohol use, but books containing drug or alcohol use. So, Sherlock Holmes, yep, can't read that in schools anymore if 43% of these people get their way, because we all know that Sherlock was shooting up the heroin. Yeah, can't have kids learning about that. Can't have, and I mentioned Go Ask Alice. Let me sort of explain that book a little bit, especially if you've never read the book. It's a diary of this woman that, I say woman, she was like a late teen or maybe early 20s, and there was a lot of drug use, and she wrote about some of this drug use and taking something that she thought was like LSD, but it was tainted with something, and having this horrible trip. And she explained, like, you know, I thought there were bugs all over me and all of this other horrible stuff. And I would say that as far as like a don't use drugs sort of campaign, reading Go Ask Alice is much better than anything the ad council can ever come up with. The whole, this is your brain on drugs. Yeah, like somebody had to have been on drugs to think that was a good analogy of scramble an egg and claim that it's your brain on drugs. No, like read Go Ask Alice and you're not going to want to touch drugs because of all of the horrible things that happened to this woman. So that is a book that I think everybody probably should read, But if 37% of American adults get their way, yeah, you can't find that book on a school library bookshelf. 36% want books about vampires or books containing vampires removed from school bookshelves. And the article here continues. It says, that all seems pretty standard. More unsettling, perhaps, is the fact that 33% of Americans don't think school libraries should stock a copy of the Quran, while 29% want to keep out the Torah or Talmud, and 13% would ban the Bible. Well, here's the thing, though. The Bible would also have been banned because of violence and witchcraft. And before you get upset and say that I'm claiming the Bible is a book of witchcraft or sorcery, that's not what I'm claiming. But there's mention of witches in the Bible. There was King Saul, who went to a sorcerer and had her do some kind of seance thing. So there's mentions and depictions of witchcraft and sorcery in the Bible. So the Bible would be expelled from libraries if the sorcery people at 44% get their way, or the 48% that want anything violent removed. About a quarter of those surveyed think students should be kept from any book that questions the existence of a divine being, while 20% want to keep out books discussing creationism. Taking things outside of the school walls is where the poll gets really icky. In addition to the 28% who say yes, some books should be banned completely in America, another 24% said they were unsure as to how to answer that question, and 71% support books being rated in the same vein as movies, with 35% strongly in favor of the plan. Now, as a book publisher, I would not comply at all if it was something to where, like, here's a voluntary book rating thing. Yeah, not going to voluntarily participate. Not going to do it. What I might do is put some kind of sarcastic book warning about may cause excessive thinking, may be dangerous to ignorancy, something along that line. And there actually is one of the books that I published, the Doublespeak Dictionary, written by Leslie Starr O'Hara. She actually requested a parody book warning go on, or a parody label warning label go on the back cover of the book. So I might just take that warning label from the Doublespeak Dictionary and put it on all of the other books if there is some kind of book rating thing that goes on, as sort of like a screw you. Like it would be a big giant middle finger to the would-be censors. The article here from Reason.com continues. It says, interestingly, there was less support for banning movies at 16%, television shows also at 16%, or video games 24%. Deborah Caldwell Stone, Deputy Director of the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom, suggested that this speaks to the enduring power of books, but the author says, I can't help but think some comes from how much Americans think they would be personally affected by each ban. Ban the Quran? Yeah, sure, go ahead, but you can have my Walking Dead and Skyrim when, etc., etc. There's more from this article, including a quote from Peter Hart of the National Coalition Against Censorship, and why he says censorship is not good. But I'm sure you could tell that by the title of the organization. I'll cover that when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Opening a wallet is quick and easy, and for merchants, there are no transaction fees on the first $1 million worth of transactions. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's FANS.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
So Peter Hart of the National Coalition Against Censorship says he would like to see results to more nuanced questions about censorship. Quote, "We thought it would be helpful to ask questions that would try to draw draw people out a little bit." He says, you should ask, for example, you say that you're in favor of banning any kind of book. Well, what about? And then ask specifically, The Great Gatsby. How do you feel about The Diary of Anne Frank? Or Beloved? Who knows what someone has in mind when they're answering these questions? A terrorist how-to guide? Or are they thinking actual literature? Censorship and institutionalized ratings are easy answers to difficult questions, said Caldwell Stone, adding, quote, "I think it circles back to the fact that we don't talk about these issues from a civic standpoint. We don't talk about the Bill of Rights anymore, and our commitment to educating students about civics has really declined in the last few decades." She also noted there's always the other old adage that there should be something in every library to offend someone. And I completely agree that there should be something in every library, and I would dare say something in every personal library. Because when I think of libraries, I don't just think of buildings that have the sign library and are open to the public or open to students. I consider like a book collection on your shelf, that's your personal library. There should be something in your personal library that, like, it borders on offending you personally as an individual or as a human or as, like whatever sort of a label you want to apply to yourself. There should be something in your library that borders on offending whatever label that is that you have. And I can't think off the top of my head what I would have in my personal library that borders on that, but I should probably add something to it. If I cannot think, and most of my books right now are in storage because of living situation and whatnot, but I need to go through my books and figure out what I have that borders on being offensive to me personally so that I can take my own advice. And maybe I should get a terrorist how-to guide. You know what? As a matter of fact, and I probably should not verbalize this, but I will anyway, I actually have downloaded a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook, not because I want to test out any of the things, but just because I want to be able to say I have a copy of it. So that would be the one thing, and it's on a flash drive somewhere. Like, it's not a physical book. So, like, I still consider that as counting as part of my library. That would be the thing that borderlines being, like that's the thing that borders on being offensive to me personally that I have in my library, the Anarchist Cookbook. So what are your, and I never really do this, like, send me an email, radio@fppradio.com. Let me know what books you have that either offend you or border on being offensive to you. And I'll after I collect a few emails with people telling me what they find borderline offensive, I will read some of these answers on a future episode of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. So if you don't have anything in your library that borderlines being offensive to you, go get something and then send me an email and let me know what you got. radio@fppradio.com. The article here from Reason.com continues. It says, Library Journal editor Lisa Peet notes that the survey's results would seem to show a rise in conservative attitudes towards censorship, especially in the context of school libraries. True, but I wonder how much of the rise in conservative censorship views can be attributed to millennials of the left. Alas, Harris offers no generational breakdown for most of the book banning survey questions. Millennials were, however, slightly more likely than Gen Xers to support a book rating system, and only slightly less supportive than boomers or senior citizens. Republicans, meanwhile, were almost twice as likely as others to believe that some books should be banned completely, 42%, compared with 23% of Democrats and 22% of political independents. College graduates were somewhat less likely than those with a high school education or less to support book bans, 24% versus 33%. Now, something that I would like to see, and like I can realize, or I understand that just because I would like to see it doesn't mean that I ever will, or that anybody running one of these polling companies will ever actually take my advice. But instead of just offering the Republican, Democrat, Independent, like, break it down even further of, do you consider yourself to be a libertarian, a conservative, a liberal, a progressive, a communist, a socialist? Like, you could have probably 15 different political labels that you allow people to identify with, and break it down even further, because I would really like to see, and I'm sure that there is somebody that calls themselves a libertarian that thinks that there's some book somewhere that should be banned. And I want to know who these people are, because I would love to see how many people are trying to bastardize the word libertarian. And I know that there are people trying to do this. You don't really need to look much further than some of the people that have at one point in their life been members of the Libertarian Party. Bob Barr and Wayne Allen Root are two prime examples of people that have tried to bastardize the name libertarian. Wayne Allen Root even said that he wanted to redefine the term libertarian to mean conservative, and it's a good thing that he got ran out of the party. He, tucked tail and went back to the Republicans, but he's still claiming to this day that, he didn't, you didn't fire me, I quit, is basically what he's trying to say. And yet, technically, he did resign from the Libertarian National Committee, but he did so because, he felt the pressure. He knew that he was not really welcome in the party anymore, and he wound up leaving. So I want to go through some of these responses here. I've pulled up the actual the actual survey from the Harris poll, and they have, the way they have the questions here, they've got it in a summary grid. And the question is, do you think that children should or should not be able to get the following books or types of books from school libraries? And the use of the word children, it puts in people's minds, like young people, like elementary school, but then they say school library, so it could be all the way up to 12th grade. And actually, I will not read any of these, but I will put this link in the show notes so you can read it yourself. And don't forget, every Wednesday is the Ask Me Anything. Send those questions, AMA@FPPradio.com. This is Peace, Love, Liberty.